Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here, Harpreet Singh, with the daily analysis of the Hindu from 19th of October 2024. Let's begin today's analysis. The first slide over here basically is the QR code for the Telegram account where you can find this particular PDF along with the other material that is required for your preparation. What all topics have we taken for today's analysis? First of all, direct tax collection has increased or risen. That is first thing. The second topic that we have taken is the concept of new drugs. Next, SEO outcome. We had already discussed SEO in the previous analysis, and we told that what the outcome would be. We're going to discuss that. So here's the outcome. Then the National Learning Week, which is to be actually inaugurated today by the Honorable Prime Minister. Then the editorial with respect to Uttarakhand, its ecology, and the impact of the Char Dham project that is going to have on the ecology is being discussed over here. Along with it, we have the news and shorts and the MCQs, which are important for your preliminary examination. Let's begin today's analysis. So you'd be seeing here the article has been in the news, rather various newspapers also, with respect to increase in the direct tax collection. Now, the Central Board for Direct Taxes, CBDT, released data where direct tax revenue contribution climbed to 56.72% in the fiscal year 2024. Now see, this is the news. Now we should have a little bit of background data or information about that, and along with it what the report is basically seeing, because when you are doing questions of economics, first of all in the mains examination, then these data become very useful. Secondly, in your preliminary examination also, they can ask you in one of the other statements that there has been a continuous increase in the direct tax or not, whether there has been a decrease or whether the contribution of indirect taxes more or less. So these things can be asked. That is why these reports become very, very important. So before we go ahead, please understand what are direct taxes and indirect taxes. When we talk about tax, first of all, we can categorize them into two categories: direct tax and indirect tax, both of them at the state and the central level. Now, before that, let's understand what the direct tax is. See, direct taxes are levied on the individual business based on their income, profits, and assets. On the other hand, indirect taxes are imposed on goods and services rather than directly on the individual or business. For example, you'll be seeing that, I have that like income tax. Now, income tax is a direct tax. Whatever income I am earning, a tax is being imposed on me directly because I am earning that income. That is a direct tax. Now, for example, if I buy, let us say, this particular book, right? This particular book. Now, there's some tax, like GST is imposed on this. Now, it is imposed on this, then I have to pay when I am buying this book. So it is not being directly imposed on me. I'm indirectly paying it because I'm buying this book. So it is known as indirect tax. Rather than directly being imposed on an individual, it is imposed on what? The goods and services rather than on individuals or businesses. Now, this is the important dimension. So, with respect to the payment, paid entirely by the taxpayer directly to the government, because it's imposed on me, let us say income tax, I'll pay directly to the government of India, right? Next, ultimately paid by the end consumer of the goods and services. Yes, it is paid but it is imposed not directly on me, but on the goods and services on which as a consumer I have to pay. So it is indirect. Next is, when I talk about direct tax, you'll be see it's progressive in nature. As you move ahead, let us say certain slabs, let us say income people within certain slabs will be subjected to no tax. As you move ahead, then 10%, 20%, then 30%. So that means, do you realize there is a aspect of progressive taxation, that with the income rise, the taxation is also rising. So that is known as progressive taxation. But in the case of the indirect tax, there is no such progressive taxation. Let us understand that if 18% GST is imposed on certain article, now, whether your income is 1 lakh per month or your income is 10,000 per month, you are, when buying that product, have to pay that amount of tax because it is imposed on that particular good or service that you are buying. So this is basically the difference between direct and indirect taxes. Clear? Now, when I'm talking about here, you see at the level of the direct taxes and the direct taxes at the state level can be, let us say, personal income tax, corporate tax, minimum alternative tax, capital gain tax, dividend distribution tax, securities transaction tax, equalization levy. At the state level, it can be land revenue and the property tax that we have. With respect to indirect, now these are all what? direct taxes. That means directly being imposed on an individual. Indirect, you have the central GST, interstate GST, customs duty. At the state level, you have the state GST and the stamp duty. These are indirectly imposed. So first of all, because the report is here, so it is important for you to understand also what is direct and indirect taxes, right? Hopefully you would have understood this by now, by the example of the book that we gave, that if a tax is being imposed on me directly, income tax, I'm directly paying it. It is imposed on this book, not on me directly. But when I'm buying this book, I'm paying a tax that is assigned to this book. So that means indirectly, though I'm paying indirectly, not directly imposed on me. So this is known as the indirect tax. So let's come back again with respect to the direct tax collection. You see it's seen a rise. Now let's see what the report basically says and entails. Key highlights of the report. See, the report says direct tax to the GDP ratio jumped to high of 6.64%. Now, when I'm talking about direct tax to the GDP ratio, what is it? Is the share of the direct taxes to the overall economic output in the country. So that means out of the total economic output, what percentage is the direct tax contributing? Again, out of the total economic output in the country, what percentage is the direct tax contributing? That is the percentage of direct tax to GDP ratio, which has jumped to 6.64%. Firstly, this is stated. Next is direct tax to the total tax revenue has increased. That means let us have a total pool of taxes that is collected. Out of that, we realize from the last year, we realize that the percentage of the direct tax has increased. That means it has increased to 56.72% from 54.63%. Right? So more direct tax collection. Indirect taxes has reduced, obviously, because as a percentage terms, we realize that if direct tax is increasing as a total revenue, the percentage of indirect will decrease. So it has basically decreased to 43.28 from 45.37. So these are certain reports. Along with it, we realize that last time, please remember this becomes important. Last time, when was the indirect taxes more than the direct tax collection? That was in 2021. So this statement can be asked. The indirect collection was greater than the direct collection in 22-23. They can put the statement. It is 2021. Right? State-wise contribution, Maharashtra 39%, Karnataka 12%, Delhi 10.4%. So these are centers of economic activities. That is why the amount of the rich class, for that matter, the corporates are here. So the amount of direct tax collection also happens at a greater degree to over here. That is why we realize that these are the centers or hubs. Over here also you'll be seeing. First, as I said, it's Maharashtra, then Karnataka, then Delhi, and then Tamil Nadu, and then Gujarat. So this is basically the order also. This can also be asked. So this is important. So correct? So it's a positive thing that people are paying direct taxes also now. Incomes are increasing. So it is a positive way, a positive dimension that is observed. Now next comes with respect to the antibiotics. There was a word that was used in the various newspapers, including the Hindu, which says that all antibiotics are in the definition of new drugs. Now the word new drugs that came, now this becomes important from the analysis for the civil services examination, prelims as well as mains. See, the Drug Technical Advisory Board, DTAB. DTAB, now we'll see what it is. Drug Technical Advisory Board recommended the inclusion of all antibiotics in the definition of new drugs in the New Drugs and Clinical Trial Rules 2019. So there's a body, let us see this. We know that DTAB, just now we heard the name of DTAB. So what it is? It is the highest decision-making body on technical matters in the country with respect to, let us say, drugs, whether what action should be taken, what are the changes should be made. So very technical aspect with respect to drugs dealing and all, medicine equipment also for that matter, are dealt with DTAB. Now see, constituted under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, and is a part of Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. The nodal ministry is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So now at least you know what is DTAB. Now coming back to the same topic here, we see that DTAB has recommended. Now again, recommendation has been made, approval is done by the Ministry of Health. So recommended with respect to the inclusion of all antibiotics into new drugs. So what is the meaning of new drugs? Now whatever is being mentioned over here can be put in points as various statements in your preliminary examination and asked what among the following comes under the gamut of new drugs, right? So this becomes important. See, so what is new drug under the basically the rules of 2019? We see that the definition of new drug, a new drug is one that has not, please understand, that has not been significantly used or approved as safe and effective by the Central Licensing Authority in India. You will be realizing why all antibiotics have been put under this category of new drugs. There's a reason behind it. Did you realize when we use the word new drug, it basically says new drug are those which have not been significantly used or approved as safe or effective. The reason behind this rising multi-drug resistance in India is something a point of concern. And people consume antibiotics like something like a vitamin C or vitamin B capsules that they're consuming. That is why it has become important from the side of the government of India to regulate this. From the side, because the doctors are also overprescribing. People consider themselves as doctors by watching videos on YouTube also. They are also consuming antibiotics like anything. That is why now putting it under this category makes it mandatory so that you cannot get any antibiotic without the prescription. Along with it, certain stringent norms are also imposed with respect to the usage of antibiotics. That is why it has been put under the category of new drugs, because when it comes under the category of new drugs, that means it has not been significantly used or approved as safe. That means because obviously the harms are there with respect to antibiotics. But only and only if the doctors have prescribed, only use it then. That is why it has been put under the category of new drugs. So new drugs are, the definition basically says. Now, next are modified claims. It includes drugs already approved but now proposed with a modified claim, such as new indications, dosage, forms, and administration routes. So these are certain things, other points of dimensions that you should know. So these are also coming under the new drugs category. Modified claims, it includes those drugs which have been approved, now proposed with modified claims. That means a new drug that has been modified, and say that new therapeutic, let us say, outcomes are going to be there or benefits are going to be there. So those categories would also be included in the category of new drugs. Next is fixed dosage combinations. You have seen very often, there are medicines that are given where 2 or more medicines as a totality might be present in one capsule, or the doctors might be prescribing you 2 or 3 medicines along together in order to treat one particular disease or problem that you are having. Similarly, realize fixed dose combination means 2 or more active drugs in a single dosage form. Now, whether they are in one capsule or the doctor is prescribing you 2-3 medicines and telling you to take them together, depends upon the case. In that particular case, realize fixed dose combination, a new drug can be fixed dose combination of approved drugs proposed for the first time or with changes in the ratio of the ingredients. So again, even in the case of the fixed dose combinations, will also be coming under the new drug category. In case, let us say, new drugs can be fixed combinations of approved drugs proposed for, let us say, for the first time with certain changes. Let us say if they are approved for the first time, in case of the fixed dose combination, along with it, we realize that the ratio of the ingredient have been changed in that. So again, what will happen? It will be under the category of approved as safe, not approved as safe or effective right now, because it is just now approved. So what will happen? It has been or will be put under the category of new drugs. So next is novel drug release system. Please understand, drugs with modified or sustained release form. That means the release or the effect of the therapeutic drug is in a sustained manner. Along with it, certain modifications have been made in the drug that will also come under the category of the new drug. Now understand, biological products like vaccines, gene therapy products, they will also be coming under the new drugs, because the problem is that these things require a lot of time for being tested, because they may be effective, may have some side effects and problems. So these are the things. Next is, so these all are important with respect to the new drugs under the NDCT rules 2019. Again repeating, new drugs are those which are not significantly used or approved as safe and effective by the centering licensing. That means they're not approved right now with respect to whether they're safe or not. Next is modified claims, certain drugs which have been already approved with new proposed aspect that there are certain modified claims that would be there and released by the companies, but not approved as such safe right now. Fixed dose combinations, having one or more than two active drugs in a single dosage. Now, again, what will happen? A new drug can be fixed combination of approved drugs proposed for the first time or with changes in the ratio. Again, they may or may not be safe. That is why another category of new drugs. Novel drug delivery system, again, certain drugs modifications have been made, and there are, or let us say there is a sustained release. That means when you eat that particular medicine, there is sustained release of the ingredients or the impact of the API that will going to have on you, or that means what the therapeutic value would be with respect to the body. That is, let us say if it is modified in a sustained manner, it will also come under the category of the new drugs, because again, we are not very sure what the impact would be unless and until it is declared as safe by the central licensing authority. Again, biological products like vaccines, gene therapy products and all, again, we require a lot of time for understanding them because it is something very complex. That is why we realize that these are also put under the category of new drugs. Now see, this move aims to strengthen the control of manufacturing, sale of antibiotics requiring central government clearances instead of the state authorities. Now, allowing purchases only through prescription. So please understand, that is the reason. Overall, we have seen that the misuse of antibiotics is creating a lot of issue with respect to health, with respect to the immunity, with respect to the antibiotic resistance that is rising. So this step had to be taken. So this was important from the perspective of prelims as well as mains. Again, DTAB we have done. Now comes the SCO Meet 2024 outcome. We have already done SCO. I put a slide regarding the details, but we've already covered it in detail when we studied the evolution of SCO, the members, the observers, the dialogue partners and all. But over here, we will focus on the dimension of the outcome that is there. So we realized that the key highlights of the 23rd meeting of the Council of Heads of the Government, they focused firstly on the economic cooperation. That is, focus on the sustainable economic growth, green development, digital economy and MSME and the job creation. So economic cooperation among the countries that are members of the SCO. Now please understand, there was another highlight that was support for BRI, Belt Road Initiative. Please understand, this is something that India completely went against, that we are not having any consensus or agreeing to this concept, because the China's Belt and Road Initiative has its tentacles moving through the POK region. Now, POK, though claimed by Pakistan, is an integral part of India. So that means the Belt Road Initiative going through POK goes against the integrity, unity and sovereignty of India. That is why, though other countries supported BRI because it could be helpful in linking the countries like China, Russia to the other parts of the Central Asian countries, it is fine, but it is going against the unity and integrity and sovereignty of India. So India did not have any consensus or agree to this. That is why India opposed the BRI as it passes through POK. POK, Pak Occupied Kashmir. So overall, we see economic cooperation. Other countries other than India supported the BRI. Climate action, commitment for addressing the climate change and including the establishment of a special working group on the climate change. So that means this SCO will have this particular group which is going to focus on, let us say, what the climate changes have been, how to resolve them, what funding is required, how collectively they can cooperate towards resolving the issue or addressing the concerns regarding the climate change. Next, we see food security, emphasized cooperation on the global food security and promotion of climate resilient crops. This again becomes important. We had studied the global hunger index where we realized that country like India, we are ranking very poorly, right? 105th rank among the 127 countries. Similarly, other countries are also facing a lot of issues. So it is important that with the climate change that is now playing a major role, food security concern is a very important issue. And that is not impacting one country, but impacting every country. That is why collective efforts, having resilient crops, having alternative food mechanisms, better, let us say, resilient with respect to, let us say, climate change, or what other modification, let us say genetic modified crops, if approved properly, can they be used over here? All these things are basically being discussed over here. Humanitarian and cultural cooperation in education, sports, youth diplomacy, and culture. Again, cultural exchange programs becomes very important over here for any major diplomatic multilateral platform. SCO expansion. We had studied in the previous understanding that Belarus became a full-fledged member in 2024. So, discuss the organizational development related to Belarus accession and strengthening of the SCO was again discussed. Along with it, three evils were mentioned. First, terrorism. Second, separatism. Third, extremism. Now, these three are the evils which are basically impacting various countries, where India, without directly mentioning the name of Pakistan, did say countries who have been sponsoring terrorism and all. And that becomes very relevant because state-sponsored terrorism is an integral part of the Pakistan's policy against India. Now, over here, understand, External Affairs Minister, Mr. Dr. A. Jaishankar, signed 8 outcome documents. Now, these documents become important for knowing what at least they have been signed. See here. One Earth, One Family, One Future. Developing a dialogue idea for One Earth, One Family. That means Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is another same concept that we already have in the Indian culture. We have one Earth, that is like a family, and we have a common future. Again, linking with the concept of sustainable development. SCO Startup Forum and Innovation. The outcome of Indian initiative like SCO Startup Forum. So that means collectively how all the countries can help each other towards developing a platform for startups, boosting the economic cooperation through these means was also again signed. Digital public infrastructure. So that means this is digital inclusion, digital infrastructure development is a need of the hour, because again, India is on a very right path, progressing in various means with respect to digital infrastructure. So other countries can also reap benefits. Along with it, we can also cooperate with countries like China, even Russia for that matter. And together, this thing can be helping all the countries towards development, economic cooperation along with it, and other dimensions that are associated with it. Mission life and sustainability. So that means SCO is taking inspiration from the mission life to achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So they are basically reigniting the concept of the sustainable development, what has to be achieved by 2030. So that is being again discussed. Global food security, enhancing global food security and nutrition, and use of climate resilient crops. Again, next is fair connectivity projects. Fair and balanced connectivity. Please understand why India has signed this fair connectivity, because it is not against connectivity, but it is against those connectivities which go against India's sovereignty. Like the BRI initiative of China is against the sovereignty. That is why India wants a connectivity which is fair and which does not go against the interest of any nation along with India. Next is open trade. That means rule-based, non-discriminatory, fair and inclusive trade within the World Trade Organization's gamut. Next is multilateralism and development. That means India has said it is going to oppose the protectionist measures, unilateral sanctions, and trade restrictions that are imposed by countries. See, India has always had a policy of not going with certain unilateral sanctions that are imposed by any country. For example, if United States imposes a sanction against Russia, or for that matter, Iran, India doesn't blindly follow that, because India believes in the concept of multilateralism, and it believes in the concept of importance to be attached to its interest. That is strategic autonomy. That is why, again, multilateralism has been emphasized. So these all documents were signed by India, represented by Dr. S. Jaishankar. Now over here, we have already done this. What is SCO? It is a permanent intergovernmental international organization announced on 15th June 2021 in Shanghai. These were the initial creators or members: Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, right? Now preceded by the Shanghai 5 mechanism. Now we have already done this in the previous discussion So please look at to that, because you have done a lot of SEO discussion in the previous lectures. All those who would have noted it down, you can just add the outcomes now. Now we all know 10 members are there. These are the members. Last being Belarus, which joined in basically 2024. Observer status is with respect to Afghanistan and Mongolia. Dialogue partners are again 14 dialogue partners are there as mentioned over here. Clear? So these are certain things that you should know as per the basics. Let's move ahead. Prime Minister set to launch National Learning Week today. As I'm recording over here, Prime Minister would be launching the National Learning Week, as he had to launch close to 10:15 a.m. today. So 19th of October. Now please remember what is he saying. The article says PM will launch Karma Yogi Saptah. Saptah, that means week. National learning with respect to Karma Yogi today. Now please understand, we need to understand the dimension of Mission Karma Yogi also and the dimensions associated with that. Before that, let's understand what this week basically entails. See, when we talk about civil services, you would be realizing that civil services over the time has been criticized even by the Administrative Reform Commission, that there has been a rusting of the civil services. Why? Because once a person becomes a civil servant, it is observed that the continuous learning process that was observed during the, let us say, training phase or during the preparation for civil services was there. But after that, that learning tends to stop and there is stagnation with respect to the ability that can be enhanced or the nurturing of the knowledge and the utilization of the knowledge that can be done. In this perspective, this National Learning Week has been a very positive initiative by the Government of India, where we'll be seeing that various conferences, various learning things, various dimensions would be there, where the civil servants would be basically spending certain time where they would be learning new things. Certain modules are going to be there, lectures from eminent personalities are going to be there, usage of technology and other dimensions are going to be there. So this week is basically they're going to spend certain amount of hours where they're going to learn newer things. So this is a very positive way forward. So let us see what is it. National Learning Week would be the largest event of its kind, providing fresh impetus towards individual and organizational capacity building for civil servants. That is why individually also you improve your abilities, capabilities and learn new things along with it, because so many civil servants are going to be there. How as a team that you can work as in an organization and in teams towards, let us say, innovation, using the best practices, all these things would be here basically emphasized. We realize that it would stimulate renewed commitment. Why renewed commitment? Because the commitment with which these people join the civil services, you should renew that you who had come here for doing something good for the country. So and that was basically being represented, or how can that be increased? Through continuous learning and improvement. That is why it is being emphasized in this week. National Learning Week aims to create one government message. What is that message? Aligns everyone with national goals and promote lifelong learning. Did you see lifelong learning? Because learning never stops. So once you stop learning, your life starts stagnating. The concept of, let us say, innovation tends to deteriorate. So that is why it becomes important over here. Okay. So we realize that during the National Learning Week, this particular week, each Karma Yogi will commit to achieving a target. Karma Yogi over here means the civil servants are going to achieve a target of at least 4 hours of competency linked learning. So in how the mechanisms or ways through which competency can be increased, capacity building can be increased, new learnings can be done. So at least 4 hours, participants may complete target hours through mix of modules. So there is not one set of module. You can do various modules, whether IT learning with respect to or listening to eminent personalities, learning new skills. There are a mix of modules that are going to be present. Eminent speeches would be delivered over here. So eminent speakers are going to deliver the speeches. So you can even listen to them, learn from them. So there's a mix of things. So this is basically, this thing is going to happen in this particular week. That is what? National Learning Week. Now, please understand, this comes from the aspect taken from the national, that is a national program for civil services capacity building, which is known as Mission Karma Yogi. Right? Now, please understand, you should have a brief idea about that also. See, Mission Karma Yogi was envisaged by the government addressing the needs and aspirants of the citizens. Why? Because The traditional British structure of civil services was based on the concept of master slave, and that is what is not required. The needs have changed. People are also getting educated. They need a robust civil servant mechanism over there. That is why this thing came into being. Anchored at the apex and headed by the Prime Minister, it is basically designed to enhance the capabilities of the civil servants in India. Central to this program is a recognition of suitable government workforce. Why? Because one that is towards, let us say, progressive mindset, one is ready to innovate, one not with a lethargic attitude. That is why, and that will come only when you are learning, reading, and going through newer things. So the workforce will focus on imparting competencies critical to discharge their roles. So we see what are the certain dimensions. A competency framework for capacity building, architecture with, let us say, shared understanding, breaking of the departmental silos. That means you're not confined to one department. You have to cooperate with the departments and within the department. Shared resource architecture, democratizations of learning, lifelong learning, and along with it, analysis and capacity building. So these are the dimensions that are there. Again, this can be asked in your prelims as well as the mains examination. Please understand, there are certain pillars of Mission Karma Yogi. Again, I'm doing this. Please understand. Policy framework, how the framework should be there, how proper, let us say, whenever any policy is being framed, that requires a lot of analysis capability of the civil servants themselves. So that dimension with respect to policy framework becomes important. Institutional framework. Then we see competency framework. We see digital learning. That means the I Got Karma Yogi is basically dealing with the digital framework where you can learn new skills over here also. Electronic HR management, EHRMS, monitoring and evaluation. So these are various dimensions that are there. So this basically aims at enhancing the capability, monitoring, evaluation, the performance of the civil servants with respect to the policy framework, with respect to the institutional dimension, with respect to the what the competency and performance of the individual servants have been there, because you have the concept of appraisal system, which basically tells you what the performance is. Then along with it, digital learning targets that have been done. Then EHRMS system and monitoring and evaluation of all these things again becomes the parts of the Mission Karma Yogi. Let's move ahead. Now this is your editorial. Now this becomes very important because I come from the state of Uttarakhand. I am in Dehradun. So I could very well correlate with what is mentioned over here. Again, these are views, but what is being mentioned over here is that there is a fragile ecology or ecological setup in the Himalayan states. If we are talking about Uttarakhand as over here, you realize that you would have seen repeated aspects of landslides happening, losses of life happening. Along with it, we realize that because of the projects like Char Dham Yatra project that is going here, we do not say that it is not required. It is required because if development completely cannot be compromised. But we realize that because of those projects also, we realize earthquakes are also happening and landslides are also increasing. So we need to understand there's a delicate balance between development and ecology and environment, which in a way, according to this writer, have been neglected. Now let us see certain dimensions, what this article says, this editorial says. Please see, he mentions the Char Dham project. Now please remember, Char Dham project over here is basically the important Char Dhams in Uttarakhand, which are being linked through what? Through the road connectivities. Now, this connectivity of roads that we are talking about itself is very costly affair, but again, it is important for development. But more than the cost is the dimension of the ecological degradation that is taking place. Now, you'll be seeing all these connectivities that are taking place. Kedarnath, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath. Now, these, see, when we talk about Char Dhams, these are the Char Dhams. See, Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri, and let us say Yamunotri. Now, you'll be realizing from Rishikesh, all these points are being linked, right? Along here, obviously, other connectivity is there. So this is basically talking about the Char Dham Yatra project. Now, what is it will involve? It is a 900-kilometer long, 2 lanes, 12-meter wide roads will be constructed with a cost of 12,000 crores. Right? Estimated cost is 12,000 crore. Now, there was a report analyzed by various people along with the writer over here, which was prepared by the University of Potsdam, Germany. Now, this university basically analyzed the Char Dham project. And they said that it will impact the ecology and that would be catastrophic for the state as well as the other parts, because again, if certain mishap happens, that impacts the other states with respect to various dimensions. Now, please understand, this was mentioned in the introduction. As we move ahead, we realize that he gave an example. The report basically gives an example. They said from Rishikesh to Joshimath, it is as you move from Rishikesh, you move to the aspect of Joshimath. Let us say from Rishikesh, 247 kilometers as you move, you reach a region that is Joshimath. In October, in last year itself, we realized that in a stretch of 247 kilometers, 309 full and partial landslide took place. Imagine, in 247 kilometers, 309 partial or full landslides are blocking the roads. So can you imagine that one needs to understand that these are young fold mountains. These are not even mountains in proper way. Building or constructing things will every day have these repercussions of landslides and loss of life. And again, all the roads that are being constructed would again be swept away. Even in Dehradun, if you move towards Mussoorie, you'll be realizing that the whole road of major part of Mussoorie road was again gone down because of the landslides. So the link between Mussoorie and Dehradun broke for at least few days before contingency measures were taken. So we realized that this is again a major concern, because when you have partial or landslide, the full landslide, it blocks the connectivity. It takes a lot of time to clear. If it is 1 or 2 landslide, it is easier. If there are such high number of landslide, then the feasibility of the project becomes very difficult, because if you're saying 12,000 crore with respect to project, the cost will obviously escalate, but realize that every year you are rebuilding the same thing again because of the ecology that is not supporting that. Next, we realize that the writer says in the report that based on the slope, angles, and let us say lithologies and the rain activities or amount of rain that happens here, road widening will double the landslide. So whatever landslides are having, let us say 309, it will become close to 650 within these stretch. And if you see the whole stretch of all these, as you move ahead, there are greater tendency of more landslides, more and more landslides taking place. So doubling, or let us say widening of the road will double the number of landslide, and it will make it very unsustainable for the people to move, travel, and those who are staying there, it will disconnect them from the regions because travel will be stopped. Next is, over here, in spite of the various expert committees who had already pointed out this, the concerned authorities overruled the similar reports. Though this is prepared by a German university. Similar reports were prepared by Indian authorities also, various authorities dealing with the suggesting the whatever environmental implications can be there, but the authorities neglected that. Now please understand, climate change over here mentioned is becoming actually practically felt. Rain of a very high intensity that will by default lead to even more landslides and destruction of the assets. Now see, in the report, in the project it is written all weather roads. All weather roads means that the roads that are created will suffice or be, let us say, open for all the weather conditions. Now do you realize if the road itself will not exist because of the landslide, then the question of all weather roads become itself ironic. That is being mentioned by the writer over here. So because the road will not exist because of the landslides of such large scale that are going to happen. Then we realize that as we move ahead, it says that the project as a whole was very systematically divided into 50 plus small projects. Because if you have a very large project, it is seen as one project and clearances to that project becomes difficult, right? Become difficult. So it was divided into 50 plus small projects so that clearance of each small thing can be easily got, and let us say restrictions with respect to environment can be basically removed. So bypassing the rules was done. Then land blasting and cutting the slope itself is destroying the ecology, the vegetation, the flora, fauna as a whole, and the people are again being displaced. Next is transition from tourism to defense aspect. Earlier on when the case went to the Supreme Court, the view why Char Dham Yatra was being developed was said that it is important with respect to tourism and religious tourism. But later on in the Supreme Court, the stand was changed by the government and said that it is required for the defense equipment to go to the border regions in case there is certain issue or conflict between India and China. So again, then Supreme Court also did not intervene because defense again has a priority. Now we realize that again we see that there has been a massive loss of life because of the landslides, because the natives who are staying there, they are dying because of these incidents. The people who are traveling, tourists, they are dying because of the landslide of such a scale. Along with, we realize one more thing has been mentioned, that no go ahead, the go ahead for this project went without any proper scientific assessment that took place. Now this again becomes a very important point of concern. So when we talk about environment impact assessment, the moment that defense aspect comes in, it is important, then those exceptions can be there. That is why we realize that, according to the writer, the proper scientific assessment of this project was not done. And that is why today a lot of sufferings with respect to landslide and ecological events are happening. Next, another important thing is, please understand the concept and issue of migration and regional development. See, if you see the regions of, let us say, Dehradun, Haridwar, Udham Singh Nagar, these are the 3 plain districts of Uttarakhand. Dehradun, Haridwar, and Udham Singh Nagar. These are 3 plain districts. Out of the 13 districts, these are the 3 plain districts, other are hilly districts. Now, because of these activities taking place, we realize that on the one hand, we should assume that economic activity should boost. But what is happening when any such landslide activity takes place, it basically cuts the people from those regions, and in fact, the tourist number decreases tremendously. So what is happening? People from these regions are basically coming to Dehradun, Haridwar, majorly these 2, and along with it, Udham Singh Nagar also. So what is going on? People are migrating from those regions, and that is why what is happening? These regions are overdeveloping, in particular Dehradun, and those regions up in the hilly regions are becoming like ghost villages because of the activities and the climate change and the development problems that are arising because of the Char Dham Yatra. So this is again a point of concern. That is why they said that any project that has to be done, it has to take into consideration all the aspects, all the scientific aspects with respect to what the environmental impact would be, what social impact would be, what the economic impact would be, and then the decision should be taken. So again, they're focusing on the balanced approach that should be adopted for any of the projects that are done. So this was about the editorial. Now again, we have news in shorts. This is basically Sarthi. Now what is Sarthi? Please understand, National Institute of Food Technology, Entrepreneurship and Management, Kundli, has introduced a solar assisted reefer transportation with hybrid control and intelligence. It is basically this box over here. It is solar powered. Along with it, important for transporting the food items so they do not get, let us say, stale or destroyed because of the transportation is there. So what it is? Solar assisted reefer transportation with control system and intelligence. So you have seen the photograph, so at least you know what it is. Now see, Sarthi with hybrid controls and intelligence is a system that uses IoT, that is Internet of Things, sensors, solar power to reduce the post-harvest losses, because we realize that if we did not have a proper means of transportation, let us say without air conditioning and let us say proper logistic support, then the food items, particularly the perishable ones, tend to get, let us say, losses of greater than 30 to 40% happen during the course of transportation. In order to reduce this, this Sarthi has been created over here. Now see, dual components, stores fruits and vegetables at different temperatures. So air conditioning is there, so it is, you can basically preserve them also in a way longer time. Real-time monitoring, sensoring measures the humidity, ethylene and CO2 levels. Mobile app provides real-time information. Solar-powered air handling unit. So that means it is eco-friendly, and along with it, this can be adopted by the various people, especially the agricultural farmers who are dealing with the perishable goods. Next comes the Holon Gapar Gibbon Sanctuary. The National Board for Wildlife has basically deferred the approval for Vedanta subsidiary for oil exploration in this sanctuary. Now, what becomes important for us is where this Holon Gapar Wildlife Sanctuary is and certain dimensions related to that. Now, it is situated in Assam, previously known as the Gibbon Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, officially constituted and renamed in 1997, initially designated as set aside in 1881. Flora and fauna, Hulok gibbon is present here, Bengal slow loris. In vegetation, we realize a lot of, let us say, holong trees, nahar trees, and even evergreen shrubs and herbs are present over here. So this is something that you should be aware of, because this can be asked in your prelims. Now comes the MCQs. Please see. Pause the video. Pause the video and attempt the question. Pause the video, 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 attempt the question. These are your answers. So hopefully you like the analysis, and we have covered it from a various holistic dimension, whether it is the news, whether it is your news in shorts, whether it is the MTQs, or whether it is the editorial. Hopefully you learned something. So take care. We'll meet tomorrow and continue with the daily analysis of the editorial as well as the news. Take care and Jai Hind.